Good afternoon or good morning to everyone, wherever you're sitting today. Thank you to the team and the CVB Summit for allowing me the chance to speak today on a topic that is very near and dear to our business, reciprocity. Um, our organization has been uniquely serving the independent distributor space for over 35 years, and we've built a lot of the business via the reciprocity strategy. My name is Michael Jones. I'm the managing director at Routeway 360, and we serve independent distributors across the US in the food, beverage, and tools space. As with all things, our business started with a singular service rooted in supporting distributors and has expanded over time to become more of a platform company where we support the end-to-end journey of our customer. And as I mentioned, all this would only be possible through reciprocity as a strategy for our business. So let's jump into it. What is reciprocity? I'm sure you all have been discussing ad nauseum, but in its simplest form, the mutual exchange of that benefits both parties. And in the case of a business, an enterprise to enterprise partnership, for lack of a better word. I think the concept of reciprocity may seem vague, but at its simplest form, it's a product, a service, a knowledge, a market access that perhaps one party and another party share mutual synergy. There are, in the case of our business, we don't want to be experts at everything. And I think the average business wants to double down on what they're best at, their core capabilities. But what we can do is we can align ourselves with the best of the best in each subject matter. I think that allows you to elevate yourself together, elevate the partnership, and ultimately produce a better service to the end customer. And as with anything, scale tends to help. So the scale of one enterprise in a specific product or service certainly allows the second enterprise to capture value from that scale rather than building themselves. But before we get into the three drivers of value that reciprocity builds, let's level set on how to define your strategy for reciprocity. What determines success? What are the challenges? And how to overcome those challenges when it comes to building a partnership. I'll use our example recently where our business Routeway 360 partnered with Convoy Marketplace to build a one-stop shop for truck purchasing for our independent distributors that we serve. What we ultimately created was a leveraged product. In other words, like I have written here, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. The value of Convoy and Routeway working together better than working independently. We start our journey with our clients to top the funnel, helping independent distributors to find routes, to purchase routes, and to get assimilated with their vehicles. Finding vehicles tended to be the most challenging part of the customer journey. And rather than solving it on an ad hoc basis, we decided to zoom out and find a solution that we could solve in aggregate. The solution became Convoy, and our missions very much aligned to design and to simplify the commercial procurement process for vehicles, to find the tools and to provide the tools to more efficiently purchase vehicles. And so ultimately, we found a very win-win approach between Convoy and Routeway 360. And it's a very easy entrance into this whole topic of reciprocity. Convoy, the best of the best at what they do in truck marketplaces, Routeway 360, and our pool of distributors looking for that product or service under one roof that we can serve both parties. Let me flip to the next one. Considerations and challenges. To be brief here, the classical growth strategy for any business is, do I build it, do I buy it, or do I partner? Partnering would be the fundamental aspect of reciprocity. And not all partnerships are equal. Obviously, you want to find a partner where you have complementary strengths, synergy opportunities, whether their product or service is core or non-core to your business, speed to market, the flexibility requirements that you need. So in our case, to double down on the Convoy and Routeway 360 example, our core capability was not truck marketplaces, but we want to bolt on that capability. We wanted speed to market. We wanted a way to help these distributors sooner than later. And under this scenario, partnering made the most sense. Of course, you need to find a common vision, a common goal, and you need to integrate systems, and there's a lot under the hood. But ultimately, most of these challenges are solved when you zoom out and you focus on the customer. The customer is the real winner in the the reciprocity approach, especially because with a customer first mindset, both parties tend to find a similar solution. How deep do you partner? You can start at a very basic level where you're a preferred partner network. You can start to work down the chain where you begin to white label, and ultimately you can more deeply partner technology-wise and fundamentally. But it all depends on the use case, the investment profile, the size of the opportunity. And so for anyone considering a reciprocity strategy, understand what the customer outcome is and how both parties can leverage their individual capabilities to collectively address with a customer first mindset. So on the back of customer, pillar number one, building value, reciprocity building value as a value driver for the customer. On the right side of the screen, what you'll see, if I zoom out a little bit here, let's see, is a wheel. And this wheel represents our business's platform of services. At the core of the wheel is our customer, and our customer is what all of the services are built around. As I mentioned before, in the build, buy, or partner strategy, you only really want to double down on what your core capabilities are. But how do we create a situation where our customer has expanded choice, comprehensive solution, increased satisfaction and loyalty, which results in higher retention? The only way to do that would be to create a more stickier product, to bundle services, to add more value to your offering. And in many cases, in our case, it was to take the end-to-end value chain and understand where we can play to win. So as I look at our distributors' life cycle, they begin with recruiting. Once they find a route that they want to purchase, they need to move into their business services. How are they going to get incorporated? How are they going to set up their bank accounts? How are they going to find their truck? Do they need financing for that truck? How will they be insured? Once they're on the road, do they require health insurance? When they're taking vacation, how will we implement route relief to support them? The more that the customer stays within our wheel, the more that we can control the experience and improve the customer journey. I believe the moment that customers enter a fragmented environment, it causes a diluted product. It causes more of a disruption in the marketplace. And the real winner is someone that can look back end-to-end journey and understand, what are we good at? Where do we need to add? And who are the experts in those fields that we can work with together to come up with a cohesive solution? So that's what we've done at Routeway. For example, and I'll call out a few. We obviously spoke about the truck purchasing and all the value that we're creating with our partnership with Convoy. But route financing. In the case of our independent distributors, they're going to financing on a case-by-case basis when they purchase their route. And I'm not talking about the truck financing. I'm talking about the rights, the distribution rights that they're purchasing. Historically speaking, that was handled very much on a case-by-case basis, very ad hoc. What we did was we zoomed out. We worked with a financing partner who's willing to look at the holistic vantage point and say, how can we create a credit facility that underwrites the customer as it is and doesn't group it into this larger commercial environment? What that resulted in was a financing product for distributors which was 500 basis points below the average next best competitive rate. Again, zoom out. We had a challenge in addressing route financing. We found a partner who specialized in financing. We worked on underwriting this finance or this call it the debt or this loan in a very specific way that understands the risk, so that we remove the client from the general market and we serve them in a way that's very individual. We did the same thing with insurance. We built programs around these distributors where we could reduce the cost of insurance by up to 15% because we understand the client, their journey, their business. And while we may not be the carrier in the situation, the reciprocity in that situation is carrier wants a more profitable product. A broker wants a more value to derive to their clients that they represent, whether that's lower premiums, whether that's more value in those premiums. And ultimately, the best way to do that is to come up with a product that very much represents the market. So we work with those carriers to build those programs rather than, in the case I mentioned before, addressing things on a very ad hoc basis. I can't underscore enough the second that you start to leave the wheel of services, the wheel of reciprocity, the wheel of partnerships and preferred partner network, is when the challenges come both in the customer journey and in the vendors that play in the space and the brand companies that they support. So that's what we've been really doing with our business, is understanding how we can continue to support beyond our core business, understanding where our limits start and stop, and understanding where we can add partners like Convoy to the mix to help us address and prosper. So we talked about customer as the primary driving force. Of course, every business requires a view of the bottom line and the top line, and we'll start with the bottom line right now. When we and enterprises consider products and services going to market, innovating or bringing new products, there's obviously the question of what's the investment, what's the time horizon of that investment, when will I be receiving a return on that investment, and what other synergy is that investment going to add beyond just the product that we're adding. I share a few bullet points here and a graph on the right to explain a couple concepts. One concept is on the right, a partnership model, model of reciprocity, creates a risk-adjusted growth strategy to your bottom line. You lower your initial investment, you share the risk and the reward, and you're ultimately creating a more efficient path towards profitability. So on the right side, you'll see a line that's sort of up and to the right in a very methodical way, and and then on the second curve, what you'll see is a classical startup success story. You have a very heavy upfront CapEx investment, perhaps a longer timeline until you see any return on that investment. Ultimately, you may find a crux, a crossing point where the startup curve, for lack of a better word, proves successful. But when you begin to back into the risks and you risk adjust the equation, partnerships tend to be a very viable strategy, especially when you think about the value of improved demand planning, which ultimately speaks to how do we share insights in the market? How do we share lessons learned? How can I understand the pipeline of vehicles or how the market for vehicles is changing and communicate that to my partners? So there's a lot beyond, or I should say under the hood, when you start to unpack it. And the final point, I guess I would say, is forecasting and product market fit. So when we go to a market with anything new or tangential, we're really looking at iterative approaches to concept development. In our case, when we put out something new, we can update it, modify it, change it much faster if the partner that we're working with is an expert in this field. As with anything starting from scratch, you find a lot of hiccups or challenges or growing pains. But with someone that's experienced, you not only risk adjust, let's say, your investment, but also the speed at which you can continue to compete in the market. The last point I'll make is on the top line growth. So we talked about customer, we talked about profitability and the viability of a partnership versus perhaps taking it on your own. Last is just the ultimate growth factor, which is top line revenue. So how do we build up revenue? We do our P times Q, our price and our quantity. Our price will be derived from how we can be more competitive in our supply chain, how we can create more scale, as I mentioned earlier in the call. And as a individual business, there's only so much scale you can continue to grow. The third is on quantity, so offering, expanding your product line. So how can I sell more of more services to the same customer, increase your wallet share, if you will. So reciprocity tends to be a quicker way to access markets, additional products or services, innovation, which I'll speak to a little bit further on the next slide, in a way that is organic, but leveraging the value of the folks that you're working with. So in the original build versus buy versus partner strategy, I talked about what is the what is a decision matrix, and ultimately that's really where it's coming down to. So in our case, for independent distributors, we have a large market of customers that we've grown with for the last 35 years. Convoy has a very large market of vehicles that they work with, and their marketplace can reach our distributors, and our distributors can reach their marketplace. So now you've got the value of the combined customer base. The expanded market offering, Convoy, in our case, would be another platform service that our customers can drive to. And by adding to that portfolio, we are controlling the customer, we're controlling the client experience, and we are just continuing to double down as the one-stop shop. So we've really found a lot of success in leveraging partners to access tangential markets and continue to grow our business without taking on material risk in upfront and startup investments. The last slide is really on zooming out and thinking about reciprocity in its full life cycle. Innovation. So in our industry, like I mentioned, we started with one product or service and we grew, but most of our competitors tended to stay in that one product or service. And our competitive advantage continued to become, if I go to Routeway 360, I will be able to serve all of my needs. And so while innovation, classically speaking, is thought of as the next best tech or artificial intelligence, it can also mean, how do I innovate on the way that the customer currently experiences the way that they purchase, buy or sell or execute on a business or service. Network effects, I think we spoke about for quite a bit on the last slide, which is just the value of the synergy, the compounding, the fact that 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2. Moat is also a really interesting one. So how can you build up a barrier to entry where folks have a harder time accessing sort of your offerings in a quicker way, where you directly have competitive advantage, so they're not leaving the wheel. Customer centricity on the same topic. It's natural to be customer first. Capabilities, we talked about what is in-house versus what are we outsourcing. I only really want to focus on the products and the moments that matter for our business. What ultimately would be an expense, a non-profitable investment, we would shy away from. Efficiency dovetails into that. And so reciprocity in our business has been a core aspect of our growth. We continue to believe in adding value to each other, the benefit of two parties in the relationship. especially when the goals, the visions, and the clients are aligned. I definitely want to open the floor up for some questions. So if anyone has comments or thoughts or anything you'd like me to unpack, I can definitely speak to it. Otherwise, I can be contacted at the email and the phone below, michaelmj@routeway360.com. Again, my name is Michael Jones, Managing Director at Routeway360. Well, thank you all so much for your time today.